Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to be going through Hydro GeoAnalyst Mobile EDD options. My name is Monica Gertner, and I am the product manager for Hydro GeoAnalyst. And today we're going to focus on the mobile EDD option. It's been an option that we've had a lot of questions about, and just wanted to get it out there so that people know and understand what your options are for collecting data while in the field using your mobile devices. So really quickly, we'll do an intro to Hydro GeoAnalyst, or HGA, just so that you understand some of the other functionalities within the program that may be of use to you either before or after the mobile EDD workflow, which is what I'm going to focus on for this particular webinar. And as I mentioned, I will open up the phone lines at the end of the webinar so that you can ask any questions that you might have. Additionally, if you prefer, there is a chat option through the GoToMeeting, and you can certainly pose questions through the chat as well. So let's get started with some definitions or just some questions. And one of the first things that sometimes people ask is, what does EDD stand for? So EDD stands for Electronic Data Deliverable. It is a term that's a little bit more common, let's say, in North America, but it's also gaining popularity in other places in the world as well. You can think of an EDD as simply a standard format in which to organize your data. It generally makes importing then into a database far more easier if you've already set a standard for the format of that data to come in. So does HGA support EDDs? Yes, we do. We have an EDD workflow, and within that workflow there are options for using another module called the Quick Checker when you have a lot of data that's already been collected in a bunch of spreadsheets. It's called the Quick Checker, and that was our original EDD workflow. But what a few years ago, what we did was we extended that so that the templates that you used in the Quick Checker can now be made to be used on your mobile devices like your phone or your tablet. So that goes and answers the next question of, hey, can I use that EDD on a mobile device? And yes, you can. We do have an option within our Edd Template Designer to say, hey, let's make this a mobile EDD template that can be used on phones and tablets. So a quick introduction to Hydro GeoAnalyst. So HGA is Waterloo Hydrogeologic's environmental data management software program. It integrates an entire suite of analysis and visualization tools as well as reporting tools, and it has a very powerful and flexible SQL Server database backend. So there are a number of data management tools within HGA. The Template Manager is a module that lets you adjust the structure of the database. We have a data transfer system to let you get the data into the database. A query builder that lets you selectively choose different parts of data that you want to analyze further. A list editor that allows you to make drop-down lists or lists of valid values. As I mentioned, there is also the Quick Checker option in the original EDD workflow. This lets you work with your volumes of data that you've been storing, say, just in spreadsheets, and getting it ready and prepared and properly formatted to get it into the database. Once you get the data into the database, HGA includes a number of visualization tools, such as the well profile to let you look at a single well or a single station in depth, the map manager, which allows you to do the spatial analysis, a cross-section editor to allow you to digitize and understand what's going on in a cross-section, as well as our scene viewer, which lets you look at everything in your site in 3 dimensions. We also have a number of reporting tools, so we've integrated with a number of Office products because the Office templates are very simple and easy to use. So we have set templates where you can do time series charts, just push your data out to an Excel template, or a pivot table in Excel, or simply just printing out tables of data if you need to prepare appendices, etc. for your reports. You can also print to PowerPoint if you wish to print any visual components. So if you wanted to print your well profile, or you've come up with a really nice three-dimensional image of what's going on at your site, you can print to PowerPoint, which is a nice option as well. We also have extensions to use our other software. So Waterloo Hydrogeologic also develops Aquifer Test, which is our pump test and slug test analysis software, and Aquachem, which is our water quality and geochemical analysis software. So HGA allows you to push data to either one of those products if you choose to carry on and do even further analysis and understanding of your data. So like I mentioned, I wanted to touch on a few things, a few options or modules within HGA that you may want to consider that might be helpful for you before as well as after the mobile EDD workflow. So the Template Manager is the module I mentioned previously that allows you to customize your database structure. This is different than a lot of other data management software products out there that will force you to use a set database structure. HGA allows you to customize that database structure to suit your project-specific needs. So if there's a need for different tables or fields for something very specific or unique in your project, HGA allows you as the end user to do so. We also have a list editor, which is a nice feature that allows you to create drop-down lists or lists of valid values for various fields in your database. So this can also help to ensure quality data is being entered into the database if only particular values are allowed to be entered into the particular field. So as I mentioned, we're going to focus on the mobile EDD workflow, and that involves the following three components. The EDD Template Designer. So this is the module I'm going to talk about that allows you to pick the fields from the various fields that are available in the database that you want to populate, and that can also include those lists of valid values that you've assigned through our list editor option. Then the EDD Template Designer allows you to publish those EDD templates to be used on your mobile devices so that you can go out into the field and collect the data, and we'll go through what that looks like with an example. And then we have the data transfer system that has a number of different routines, but I'm going to show you the specific import routine for those mobile EDDs. Now, once you've collected data in the field and you've imported it in through the data transfer system, there are a number of different modules that you might want to use to look at that data, to understand that data or visualize it. So just some of them would be the well profile, and I'll give you a quick peek at what that would look like towards the end of the webinar, or just using our query builder, which allows you to query out subsections of data so that you can further analyze it. You can go ahead and put that information on our map or use it in our cross-section, etc., as well as preparing reports with your data. So obviously, at the end of the day, you're going to need to generate reports for whoever, your boss, your client, or even a regulatory agency. So there are a number of different modules within HGA, but we really just want to focus on the 3 steps within the mobile EDD workflow. So the ones that I'm going to go through is the EDD Template Designer and how you can design your own EDD templates. The option then to push it as a mobile EDD so that you can use it on your devices like your phone and your tablet. And then how you can, after submitting it from your phone or tablet, import it into HGA quickly and easily. So here's a little schematic that kind of understands or shows you how the entire workflow works. HGA sits on top of a SQL database. As I mentioned, that SQL database is flexible to suit your project-specific needs, so you can adjust the tables and fields. You use the EDD Template Designer to design your templates, and then you have an option to publish those templates up to a web server. Once the templates are up on the web server, anyone with the link, anyone that you provide the link, can then download that EDD template, and then it becomes a mobile EDD. What is actually happening is a HTML5 form has been created based on your EDD template. So your devices will download those forms, and at that particular point, your devices do need to have a connection. So you need to be connected to the internet to access and download those forms. However, when you then go out into the field and start collecting your data, you can have an internet connection, but in a lot of cases you might not, or you would have really spotty internet connection, and that's fine. The forms have been downloaded onto your mobile device, and all you need are your browsers. So we recommend Apple or Android, so Safari or Chrome browsers, to use those forms that you've downloaded. Then when you come in at the end of the day or during a break and you have an internet connection again, you have the option to submit the data, and that publishes the data back up to the web server. And as soon as it's up on the web server, Hydro GeoAnalyst can then download and import the data into the database. So let's look at it in a little bit more detail. The EDD Template Designer shows you all of the tables and fields that are available in your database. Remember, I was saying that the Template Manager allows you to adjust these tables and fields. So although we provide a database template to start with, you can adjust it to customize it for your specific needs. When you create your template, you simply select the fields from your database that you're interested in collecting when you go out into the field. So for this example, it's a really simple one with some lithology information. I did, however, include the station name. Obviously, you need to give a name for each of the different points where you're going, as well as the station type. And as an example, the station type within our, I'm just using the demo project that you can get with even a trial version of HGA. This station type field has a list associated with it, and you can actually see that right here. So this is one of those fields. I'm going to show you what it looks like on the mobile EDD that has a list of valid values, so that instead of typing things in, the user simply selects from a predetermined list. Number one, it makes it quicker. Number two, it makes it less likely for errors with typing and transcription errors and typos, that sort of thing. So I've also included the from and the to for the lithology table if, for instance, we're going out into the field and doing some drilling. So I've also included the soil type, the description, the color, and the odor, just as an example. So within the EDD Template Designer, this option on the toolbar allows you to publish it as a mobile EDD template. As I mentioned previously, there is another option called the Quick Checker, which this webinar isn't going to go into. We're just going to focus on the mobile option. So when you select this option, you are able to publish the template either to our Waterloo Hydrogeologic web server, and this is free. There's no charge for that at this particular point. Or you can also, the second option is to select your own web server if you want or prefer to have it on your own web server. So if you publish it on our web server, all you really need to do is provide a site name. So on our web server, it will all of the web URLs will start the same. It's online.sharehga.com/HGA Mobile, and then whatever you put here for your mobile site name. By default, it uses the name of the project and then the name of your EDD template, but I've switched it to make it simple, and I'm just calling it example. Of course, it needs to be unique, so if you have the exact same mobile site name that someone else has already used, it will give you an indication here, and you'll have to adjust the site name. Now we also have some options for additional data. So one of the things that you can do is publish with your mobile EDD a list of stations. So if you already have stations set up in your database that you want your field techs to visit, you can create a station list, and then you can pick that list and publish the list within the mobile EDD. Then your field techs know exactly which ones they need to go visit. That's an option. In this particular case, I just kept it simple and I didn't include any station groups. So at the end, it gives you a link that you can then share with the field text to go and use on either your phones or your devices, your tablets. All you need to do is connect to this particular link, and this is the example that I just showed you. So you can try it on your own devices and sort of get a feel for what it looks like. I'm going to have this link on the next couple of slides as well, so that if you want, you can feel free to connect and try it on your own. So when you first connect, like I was saying, it's downloading those forms. And the first page that you're going to load is going to be the home page. So if I had loaded stations, I would find them here. If I open up the list of stations, it would be there. Additionally, as you're going into the field and start collecting stations or data for your stations, when you return to the home page, you'll find them listed here. So really, all you need to do to begin is click the Add New Station button, and you're taken to the next page where you can enter in your station name. And then in this simple example, remember I included the station type, and the station type has that drop-down list. Again, this is one of those things that you can customize for each of your projects. This is the default that comes out of our Hydro GeoAnalyst environmental template, but if these aren't appropriate for you, or you have different fields that you wish to collect when you send your field text out into the field, you can adjust the structure and use any of the fields in the database that you want to have data collected for. So that is the main table, the location table or the station table that we often talk about in HGA. Let's look at the next one, which was that lithology table. So when I clicked on the tab over here, you have the from and the to, and you have the soil type. Now this also has a list associated with it. This is a special list within HGA, as these different soil types also have an image associated with them. So when you import these back into the database, these different soil types are going to be linked to an image which you can visualize on the well profile, which I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. So as I mentioned, I added some other fields, the description fields, the color, the odor. Again, this is customizable. You can adjust the fields that you want your text to go out into the field and collect. All right? So when you're done, you return back to the home page, and here you can see my station 1, my little example where I just entered a couple of different records. By default, it is set to be in progress. If I check this off and indicate that it is in fact now done, I'm done collecting all of the information for this station, I can then submit the information for this station. So when I click on the submit button, all I need to do is provide a field name, or sorry, a file name, and all of the file names will also have the date and time appended to it. So with certain clients that I've worked with, they just end up using their field text telling them to use their names, and then the date and the time is appended afterwards. So they know exactly who is submitting what data and at what time. So you also have the option then to clear all of that information from your device after you send it, or you can keep that information. So again, when you're in the field, you don't need an internet connection, but when you're doing this, when you're submitting the data, you do need to have an internet connection so that it can connect back up to that web server and give the data back. So once the data has been submitted and sent back to that web server, within HGA, we can use the data transfer system to import in the results of your mobile EDD. So the data transfer system has a number of different import routines, but we're just going to show you the mobile EDD one. It's really quite simple. So when you select this one, all of the mobile EDD links that you have generated from your particular project will be available here in the drop-down list. So here, for example, is mine that I just made really simple and called example. And when I hit refresh, any of the files that have been submitted back based on that EDD template will be available here. So when you hit import, it does do some validation, make sure that everything, all of the data is correct, looks at what data is already in the database. So if you have existing stations, it will append the new information to the existing stations. If you have new stations, it will create new stations and then enter in the data associated with them. So really quite simple, quick and simple, because the EDDs have already structured the data so that the field techs know exactly what data is required and what needs to be collected when they're in the field. So then if we go to the next slide, here is an example where I've imported in that a couple of simple lithology records. And as I mentioned, the soil types are associated to images. So within our well profile, which is one of our visualization tools, you can right away see the information that has been collected and visualize it and use it. So this information can be, once it's in the database, can be used in other modules besides the well profile. You can put your information, like I was saying, onto the map manager and do spatial analysis. You can use it in our cross-section editor. So this is especially helpful with the lithology information and you want to generate cross-sections. You can also take that information and display it in our scene viewer module, which is a three-dimensional module, allows you to take a look at your cross-sections, at your different wells so that you can see your different lithology. You can bring in site maps, you can bring in surfaces. There are a lot of visualization tools within HGA as well. But how about some final comments on the mobile EDDs? So as I was mentioning, it works both online and offline. You do need to be connected so that you can originally download the forms when you connect to the link that the HGA provides you, and you need to be connected when you submit the data up. However, in between, when you send your text out into the field, you don't necessarily need to have an internet connection. The HTML5 forms that you download onto your device is actually allowing the field techs to store the data locally on their device when they're in the field. You can use both Android and Apple devices using either the Chrome or Safari browser. You don't need to install a separate app or program on your device. It just works with the browser. When you purchase HGA, you do not need to purchase additional mobile device licensing. So you can provide this link, which allows anyone to download the forms and collect the data on their devices. They do not need an additional license in order to use this functionality of HGA. You can use the mobile EDD to create new stations or update data for existing stations in your database. And it allows you to continuously validate your data. So the mobile EDDs already specify exactly what information is required to be collected while you're out into the field. The lists of valid values allows you to ensure that high quality data is being collected while your techs are out into the field. And it also allows a lot less time for transcribing field notes. This was often a complaint that I was hearing from our clients, so that you can spend your time analyzing your data instead of the tedious task of transcribing your field notes. So I hope that you found that interesting and that you might be interested in trying out HGA and specifically trying out the mobile EDDs. I'm going to unmute the lines now. So if anyone has any questions or concerns that they want to ask me, feel free to ask the questions. I'll also start going through some of the chats that came through. So one person was asking about the coordinates for your stations. So the coordinates can be imported through the mobile EDD so long as you are recording them in the field in Latin long. So what HGA does with the coordinates is it always stores the coordinates in the database as latitude and longitude in decimal degrees. So the import routine for mobile EDDs does not have an option to convert between, say, a projected coordinate like one of the NAD, NAD 83, etc. You must record them in the field as latitude and longitude, which I think would be okay because I think most GPS gives you that option. So then you could use the coordinates as well. And then there was a question, will the drop-down lists work even if I'm offline? Yes. So the drop-down lists become part of the forms that you have downloaded onto your mobile device. It includes the individual fields that you need to fill out, as well as if any of those fields have the drop-down list. It's no problem even if you're offline. Can we receive a copy of the slides? Yes, actually the entire presentation is being recorded, and that will be made available and sent to you with a link. We can also just provide you with the individual slides as well if you prefer, probably as a PDF to keep the size small. But anyone who did the registration will be receiving a link to the recorded version of this webinar, and we can make the individual slides available as well. That was it for the questions through the chat. Did anyone else have any questions or anything to bring up? If not, I thank you very much for your time. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact us. The sales at waterloo-hydrogeologic.com is where you registered for this webinar. If you have any questions about HGA or would wish to perhaps use a trial version of HGA, like I mentioned, you can use this mobile EDD option with your trial of HGA and get a feel for how you might be able to use mobile EDDs to allow your field techs to be more efficient in the field and collect data on their mobile devices. Thank you very much. Take care for now.